Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. The fellas heading to the SEC as we take a look at a game that, if you asked me in the beginning of the season, would you be previewing this? Would this be kind of an interesting game? I probably wouldn't think so. But Kentucky going on the road to a Missouri team that we previewed in the summer, they're talented. But I thought they might have needed another year to kind of become competitive in the SEC. I was wrong. Eli Drinkwitz has this team playing at a very high level. They have difference makers on both sides of the ball. And this is a game that I think Missouri fans might be expecting to win. They only come in as 2-point underdogs at home. I think this game is a lot better than the national media will think it will be. And this Kentucky team, we'll get into it, has some concerns about how they run their offense. Before we get into it, though, again, I just want to say thank you guys for the support you guys have shown the channel. We really do appreciate it. Over 2,000 subscribers. We're almost at 2.3, in fact. So if you guys do like the content, consider subscribing. We love talking ball with you guys. Let's get into the game. I want to start with this Kentucky team because if you guys are kind of long-term listeners, you know this Kentucky team has been one of my favorite teams. I kind of fell in love with Coach Schlarman, what Coach Stoops is doing. And when they were running the football so well, they never really had a quarterback. They just run the football. They played good defense. It was never sexy, but they would win a lot of games. And what Coach Stoops has done with this program is extremely impressive. That being said, my concern this year has been the offensive line, where we're so used to seeing, and I'm sure the Kentucky fans remember the Big Blue Wall days when Coach Schlarman had some of the best offensive line units in the entire country, guys like Luke Fortner, Darian Kennard, Logan Sternberg, Landon Young. This used to Drake Jackson. This used to be an offensive line, a team that had an offensive line that was one of the best in the SEC. They would be able to run the football better than most teams in the SEC. This year, they don't really have that identity. And from what I'm looking at, they just seem like they're kind of confused on what they're trying to do on offense. You have a guy like Will Levis, who is a very, very talented quarterback. You all see his rocket arm, the ability to extend plays. But they still want to run the football a lot. But you look at what they've been doing, they haven't been able to run the ball successfully. Now, partially that's because Chris Rodriguez missed the first couple of games with a suspension. But even as he's come back, he's averaging 5.3 yards per carry. But the problem isn't the running back. I think Kavasier Smoke, I think Chris Rodriguez are both very, very good running backs. But the offensive line is easily not as dominant as they were the last couple of years. And they're going up against a Missouri team that you take a look at what they've done on the defensive side of the ball and who they have on the front seven, only allowing 3.6 yards per carry. They have some serious difference makers. You guys have guys like Tyron Hopper, who I'm a huge fan of, coming over from Florida, Isaiah McGuire, Jeff Coate. They have some guys in the front seven who are very good. And then you look at their secondary, only allowing 56% completion percentage. They're averaging almost over 1.5 turnovers per game. You look at what Kentucky struggles with, they struggle with turning the ball over, averaging 2 turnovers per game. I think that is, when I look at how is this Kentucky team going to move the ball against Missouri, you start to have some question marks because Kentucky doesn't really have that identity that they've had the last couple of years where we're going to grind you down. And then you combine that with Will Levis, who's very good off of play action. He's very good at pushing the ball deep. They don't really have that. Teams aren't needing to put safeties in the box, and that's why I think Kentucky, you're seeing them struggle on offense. They're only averaging, what is it? Excuse me, I got to get the numbers. 23.9 points per game, only 352 total yards per game. We know Kentucky's never going to light up the stat sheet on offense. That's not how they play. But it's getting a little bit closer to like the Iowa of the Big Ten. And I think for Kentucky fans, that's a little bit concerning. They cannot protect Will Levis. They can't run the ball as well. And you look at their playmakers on the outside. That was my biggest concern coming into the years. Like Wayndell Robinson was pretty much, if they were throwing the ball, it's to Wayndell Robinson or Josh Ali. You miss those guys. Guys like Barry Brown, Dane Key, 2 guys who have stepped up extremely well as true freshmen. You have a guy like Tavion Robinson, but they're using their tight ends. I think they've struggled with kind of hitting some of those explosive plays, and that is kind of my concern with this Kentucky team, is just that lack of identity and how they're going to be able to move the ball against a Missouri team that's not flashy. But they have a damn good defense, only allowing 21 points per game, only 311 total yards per game. They're very stingy against their run. They will turn the ball over when you decide to throw it on them. Now, on the flip side, and this is kind of why, if you ask me, I'm probably leaning to the under, and there's a reason why the over-under is 42 points. Both these defenses are very good, and both these offenses don't really have a ton of identity. You look at what Missouri tries to do on the ground. They run the ball at an okay clip, 4 yards per carry. Guys like Nathaniel Pete, guys like Cody Schrader are solid running backs. I wouldn't say they're elite level running backs. I will say, now this Missouri team I haven't watched that much of, but I did watch them on the road against South Carolina in a very impressive showing. Brady Cook can move. Like, he's not a guy that looks to run, but when he's going in the open space, he absolutely flies. And I would like to see Drinkowitz in that offensive coaching staff tap into that a little bit, because he's an absolute stud when he's being able to move. You have some playmakers. My only concern with Missouri in terms of pushing the ball down the field is they're kind of a one-trick pony. If it's not Dominic Lovett catching the ball, who has 45 catches for 659 yards, there's not really anyone making explosive plays in the passing game. Their next highest receiver is Barrett Bannister, who's kind of like that slot guy who's only caught for 200 yards this year on 17 catches. So they're a little one-dimensional when they try to push the ball down the field, and I think that's why you see them in that passing game struggle a little bit. Brady Cook only completing 65% of his balls for what? I don't want to mess with the number. 1,600 yards total. I have concerns about Missouri on the offense side of the ball. They don't hit those explosive plays. I would like to see Luther Burden, the true freshman star, get a little bit more involved. You've seen some growing pains. He's obviously been banged up, but he's a guy that can be a difference maker. And when you look to the future of this program, he's going to be the guy. You kind of want to see him do what Evan Stewart's doing and kind of taking that Texas A&M team and putting it on his back. Luther Burden's a guy that there's a reason he was a top 5 prospect in the country. I think he can handle it. I'd like to see him get more involved. They've made an effort to get him the ball, whether it's in the run game, whether it's in the passing game. I think he needs more touches, because from a Missouri team that really struggles with those explosive plays, Brady Cook only averaging 7.5 yards per attempt. I really do think that getting a guy like Luther Burden, just the ball in his hands and letting him work after the catch, could be a real beneficial play for Missouri. Now, getting to the pick, just my gut is that I think Kentucky wins this game. Again, my feeling is that Kentucky is a team that's more ready for these type of games than Missouri is. And when you take a look at, do you trust a Coach Stoops coach team versus an Eli Drinkowitz coach team, I'm probably leaning with Coach Stoops because he's done it. Those guys in the locker room have won road SEC games. They've won big SEC games. But the Missouri Tigers are a team that when I started looking into this team more, because I haven't watched a ton of Missouri, they're a sneaky good team. Again, that defense is very stingy. There's not a necessary star on that team, but they have a good front seven, a very good front seven. And they have some really, really good guys on the back end who turn the balls over. I think the key to this is Will Levis and Brady Cook controlling the turnovers. These are two teams that have struggled turning the ball over. Missouri averaging 2 turnovers per game. Kentucky averaging 1.9 turnovers per game. In a game that there's not going to be a ton of points scored on either side, you can't give the other team short fields. And when you get to the red zone, you got to score touchdowns. I'm probably leaning with Kentucky just because Will Levis, I probably trust a little bit more than Brady Cook. I trust a Coach Stoops team. I think that Kentucky defense a little bit more veteran with the guys like DeAndre Square. My lean, Kentucky inside of 2 points. That being said, I don't feel as good about it as I did before I did the research and did the prep for this, because this Missouri Tigers team, they're no pushover in the SEC. And that's kind of what I thought they were heading into this year. They aren't. This Kentucky team is solid. I don't think they're as good as many people thought. This Missouri team, though, they are the real deal. They are getting better, and they're a hard team to bet against here. We appreciate all the support you guys have shown. Again, we'll end it on that. Keep it short for you guys. Again, if you like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.